Hello, everyone, and welcome to Civic Platform. Islamophobia is one of the challenges of the Muslim community in Manitoba. So that Manitoba Islamic Association in Winnipeg, MIA, through discussions and hosting professionals across Canada to share their experience about Islamophobia. Today, Civic Platform attend one of these discussions and interviewed the speakers about their participation and how it is important for the Muslim community. Let's get started.
Assalamu alaikum, welcome Zuher, and thank you very much for being with us and sharing our program on your show, Civic Platform. On behalf of the MIA, my name is Tasneem Vali, I'm the Vice Chair, and I would just like to say this is very important, the topic Islamophobia. A conversation was very important because anytime something bad happens, anytime like the Quebec mosque attacks or the family that was, murdered in London, Ontario, anytime something horrible happened, the community comes together, and I think we need to be proactive. We need to learn how to identify Islamophobia, and we need to have the tools to counter Islamophobia. We need to empower our youth because they're the ones who are going to be facing all of this. So in this conversation, we address two things. One is what forms Islamophobia takes, and not only for Muslims, but Muslim women in particular who are seen, they're labeled, you can recognize them, or Black Muslims, right? And they're a layer upon layer of anti-racism and anti-Muslim hate and Islamophobia. So what forms that takes and how we should counter those things, and what came out of this was we need to make friendships and we need to make alliances with like-minded people who will then help us and who will stand with us, not protect us, not just help us but stand with us, and then let us lead the way to how we want to be treated, not stereotyped as oppressed, not stereotyped as ignorant, not stereotyped as terrorists, but as Canadians, as equal citizens of our country. So two of our speakers, the first speaker was Monia, who joined us from Ottawa. She actually has been working on human rights for a very long time. She worked very hard for a year to free her husband Maher, who was improperly imprisoned or falsely imprisoned at the United States after 9/11. And she's written two books, which one of these books. And so we wanted for her to share her experiences with the community and the youth about not giving up and to form friendships. And then we had Umar Abdullahi, who is a civic servant in the city of Winnipeg, and his experiences as a Black Muslim and how his family also faces Islamophobia and what his perceptions are. And the moderator that we had was Adele, who is a human rights professor at the U of M. So this is a human rights issue. It's not just an issue about Muslim people being treated unfairly. It is a human rights issue where laws are made specifically that identify Muslims as either terrorists or not citizens because they're not conforming to the culture, things like that, like for example, Bill 21 in Quebec. So this is how we chose the speakers for their experience and for their wisdom.
My name is Monia Mazigh. I live in Ottawa. I am a Canadian citizen. I came originally from Tunisia, and I am a human rights activist. I am an author, an academic. So this is, and I write books, and I give talks and speeches. I came to Winnipeg. I was invited by the Manitoba Islamic Association and I was asked to come to have a conversation about Islamophobia, which is a topic that I wrote a lot about it and that I research also about. I think it is important to have this conversation because sometimes people do not understand what is Islamophobia, or maybe they don't understand it correctly. So I think it is important to define it, to speak about it, and eventually to denounce it and to find a way how to overcome of Islamophobia. Well, Islamophobia is a very old, actually, concept. I think it existed when we had the Crusaders coming from Europe, going to the Middle East, or going to Palestine, Lebanon, Syria at that time, going to North Africa at that time, trying to take over the places of worship, looking really like defining Muslim as barbarian, as savages, as violent, as extremist, as uneducated, ignorant. I think all these stereotypes existed long ago into the imagination of the West. Today, Islamophobia manifests itself through policies, like, for example, I spoke about the anti-terrorism legislation, how it targets Muslim men, how it portrays them, or how it tries to describe them as violent. So it kind of legitimizes spying on them, harassing them in their workplace, putting them in prison, deporting them, torturing them. So all this is part of really like what is really Islamophobia. It's not just a concept, but it is really policies. We spoke about gender Islamophobia, so how women, Muslim women who are visibly Muslim, wearing a headscarf, are easy targets because they are often thought that they are weak, that they are oppressed, so that in a way justify attacking them verbally, physically assaulting them. So yes, all these are manifestation of Islamophobia. Well, I mean, for me personally, my husband was arrested after 9/11. He was rendered from the United States to Syria, his country of origin. He was put in prison, he was tortured. He was never charged with any crime. It was all because, of course, he was a Muslim man practicing after 9/11 with, really a lot of profiling that made him look as suspicious. So all my life changed from a normal life into defending my husband, bringing him back, trying to just defend someone who has been accused of terrorism after 9/11 is really mission impossible. But my life took a turn, and this is where I found myself. So since then, I found myself advocating on behalf of other Canadians who are detained abroad, who are victims of Islamophobia. As a Muslim woman wearing a headscarf, I also face Islamophobia. Sometimes in the public transportation, sometimes on the street. Sometimes it's more subtle. When I was applying to be a student, I was not always accepted, so I had to really keep applying. Yeah, eventually. So these are all different forms of Islamophobia, from laws to policies, to act of Islamophobia on the street, to discrimination in the workplace, different kind and forms. The Muslim community is really like a target of these acts, of these Islamophobic acts, more than other communities, because I think there is those legislation exist. They specifically target Muslim men and women, so people hear about them in the media. They hear politicians talking about them. So it is in the mind of people more than any other topics. if you come to someone and tell him or tell her, you are a terrorist, you are a terrorist, you're a terrorist, at the end of the day, people would believe that this person committed something wrong. So I think it's a matter of what is the message that we are conveying about Muslim and describing them. Well, I think it's a very difficult work that is in front of us, because it's a matter of finding a new representation, or not only finding, it's like really like building a different story about who we are. I think there are some small attempts where Muslims are portrayed on the positive side, but most of the popular movies and series unfortunately keep perpetuating those very cliche, those stereotypes. Muslim men are violent and Muslim women are victims of this violence, so we have to save them. I think it's really a work of being vocal, so we have to criticize this representation. We have to identify it, criticize it, and not only really criticize it and not stopping there, but also present a different one. So be present as, have different media representation, have different media sources, create new movies, have our voice represented in art. I know it can be difficult, it's a lot of money, but I think, more and more we are seeing some sort of actors who are Muslim. So they are starting, people are, and also, there is a movement right now of people from different minorities speaking out and criticizing. So I think we should really join this movement of more justice, a better representation, a fair representation, and we should ask for it and we should build it. We should be part of this new image that we have to build. I think it's important for the parents to be involved in the education of their kids. They have to know what the kids are doing in school. They have to help them, support them. If there is any sort of injustice over there, they have to be vocal, they have to explain, they have to educate. But also our kids, we shouldn't really always shelter them. I think we should, after we give them the tools, after we educate them, we should really send them to the mainstream, to the world, so they can change things. They can, be proud of who they are, be proud of their culture, but also, change those stereotypes. And they are going to be the one who are going to continue this sort of fight or this sort of change that we really need to bring to the Canadian society.
This is a very, very important question, actually. Everybody hears about intergenerational trauma, right? So when our youth are not treated equally, when they are being targeted as different or the other, there is a layer of trauma. They will become withdrawn. They will become silent. They won't speak up, right? And then it'll happen to their children and their children. So we need to stop this so that our youth understand that I have rights, same as everybody else. I know what my rights are, and I need to stop this oppression or this othering, that I'm an other right now, because I'm the same as everybody else. I have the same rights. And if we don't stop it, if we don't recognize it, it will just go on, and we will then be not part of society. We will be on the sidelines of society.
My name is Adele Perry, and I am a professor of history and women's and gender studies at the University of Manitoba. I'm also the director for the Center for Human Rights Research at the University of Manitoba. So I would say, as a historian who's interested in histories of racism and colonialism in the Canadian context, I think it's important to address the current manifestations of those histories, and that includes Islamophobia and its connections to gendered Islamophobia and to anti-blackness, and the uptick in violence against Islamic communities that we've witnessed in recent years. And I think that is something that all people who are concerned with questions of race and racism, who are interested in making change and who are interested in contributing to solidarity should consider. So as somebody who is not part of the community, I'm a white and settler woman, I'm not Islamic, I see it as something that is important for me to participate in kind of respectfully and to support. So I mean, it's interesting, but certainly, what we heard from tonight from two experts and what we know from the study that's recently been done by the Manitoba Islamic Association, which is that those sorts of discourses of anti-Islamic racism and prejudice have a significant impact on the daily lives of people in and around Manitoba and in other parts of Canada. Settler Canadian, I would say my message is that non-Indigenous, especially non-Indigenous kind of white people like myself, need to take seriously Canada's long history of racism and colonialism, and think hard about how we might find ways to challenge it, both in formal and informal capacities.
As a mother, I feel there are two very important pieces of advice. Number one is talk to your children all the time. Talk to your children, see how their day went. Anytime there's something that they're uncomfortable about, take it seriously. And if you are not able to understand, or if you do not have the resources, please contact somebody, an organization. There are many, NCCM, MIA in Winnipeg. We will help you work through this. But do contact and do raise your voice so that your child knows that there is somebody that supports them, that they are not alone in this. And the second piece of advice is learn your rights and teach your children what their rights are so they can stand up for themselves. I'd like to say thank you very much. Thank you, Zuher, for inviting us and for doing this interview. And stay safe and stay, just enjoy your families, guys. Assalamu alaikum.
Continuous awarenesses of community members is a good plan to confirm the information for the community members. Through this strategy, the Muslim community can create a defensive line that protects itself from any external dangers. So we always need this kind of discussion in order to continue moving forward in peace and safety in our lives. We reach the end of our episode. If you like it, please like, share, and subscribe to see our upcoming episodes.